Hello and welcome to TALRadio. At TAL, we connect those who are in need to those who are willing to give. And giving is not an easy task. My lovely listeners and dear viewers, you are watching and listening to a series called Self Coaching. And it's my pleasure to host Andrew Talent once again. And those of you who missed out, believe it or not, you can literally rewind the series and watch all the episodes all together. That will make a lot of sense. And for all those people who are wondering who is Andrew Talent, well, he's a self coaching expert and he has coached tons of entrepreneurs and leaders around the world. And right now, also, he's coaching many in Eastern Europe. Andrew, welcome to TAL Radio. Thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to have you once again at TAL.
Thanks, Sandy. Yes, I'm in Bucharest today, so it's lovely to be with you.
Thank you so much. So we've learned so much about self-coaching, why it is required, so many things about self-coaching and how important it is in one's life. And in this episode, we would be talking about quite a number of benefits about practicing self-leadership. So from self-coaching, now we are becoming leaders because we've already coached ourselves and now we're in the state that we can lead not just our life, probably the crew that we have, along with us in this beautiful journey of life. So Andrew, over to you and just let us know what are the benefits of practicing self-leadership.
Yeah, and just building on from our last podcast. So in terms of self-leadership, it's the ability for a human being to, with intention, lead themselves to live the life that they want to live, as opposed to reacting to things around them and living other people's lives. So there are 10 benefits, which I'm going to list for the listeners of practicing self-leadership, and then maybe we can go into one or two that are of interest for our listeners. So when we practice self-leadership and all that entails, the first benefit that we receive is this thing around increased self-awareness. So if we are leading ourselves in terms of our lives, we become very aware where there's a disconnect. So if you ask me to do something tomorrow and it doesn't really fit with my purpose, my values, where I want to lead my life, I become much more aware that actually I shouldn't be doing that thing, and I have a choice in that moment to not do it. So the thing about self-awareness is very important. We become more aware about when we are living our own lives and when we're not. So that's the first point, self-awareness. The second is enhanced resilience. Now, resilience means many things to many people, but it's that ability that when things come to us we're not expecting, if we are leading ourselves, again, we are sure about the direction we're going in, and we can tend to actually make sure we manage those situations with more resilience. So that's the second thing, enhanced resilience. The third, which is very popular and many people are interested in, is increased emotional intelligence. What does this mean? It means actually we're more aware of our own emotions when they appear as feelings and how we manage those and how we control them more effectively. And we're also aware about how other people have their feelings and how they make us feel in terms of our emotions. So emotional intelligence is improved when we start leading ourselves. It's linked to self-awareness. So the fourth benefit of practicing self-leadership is improved decision-making. If I'm very clear about how I'm leading myself and the choices I'm making in my life, I've got very clear points about the decisions I'm taking, yes or no. It's much easier for me. That leads to the fifth point, which is about authentic leadership style. So if I'm actually living the life that I want, leading myself in the way that I want to, I don't have to pretend to do things, and therefore my leadership style is authentic. So that's number 5. The sixth is about better work-life balance. Because I'm able to make decisions about the life I'm leading, I can also say no to things. That is as important, that leads to the work-life balance. 7th is increased confidence. If I'm really sure about the life I'm leading and the things I want to do with my life, it means I'm very confident in my own ability to be able to do those things. The 8th is enhanced adaptability. Because I'm really clear about the way I'm leading my life, it means that when things come to me and I need to be agile and move in different directions, I can do it with a clear purpose and reasoning why. The 9th, very important, is deepened relationships. because I'm really clear about where I'm going with my life. I know who I need in my life in terms of my relationships, and recognize I need to spend time in those relationships. And then finally, they all lead to sustainable performance, because if I'm really leading myself effectively, making the right choices in life, being deep in relationships, it means I'm going to be performing more effectively in the long term. So they're the 10 benefits of practicing self-leadership, Sandy.
Andrew, for you, it was such a beautiful and an easy flow to list out all these beautiful 10, and I would say very important 10 benefits. But for somebody like me, because, I'm sure people who are listening to us right now or watching us right now, they're pretty new to this concept. But what I could really take away from these amazing 10 pointers that you gave us, two are something which are very relevant. I mean, all the 10 are so relevant, but two are something that I'm going to pick right now. Maybe because I'm able to connect with them so much, relate with these two topics so beautifully right now at this very moment. Now, when we talk about emotion, something that I find it very intriguing. Is intelligence really related to emotion? Or is it the heart that takes the lead here, or it's the brain intelligentsia that takes the lead here when it comes to emotions?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have two forms of intelligence. Most people can relate to their IQ, so their intelligence in terms of the way they think, which is very important. And we tend to get measured and judged and promoted on what it is that we think and how we use our brain. But actually, the emotional intelligence, the EQ, as it's sometimes called, or EI, is far more important. The reason it's important is because as human beings, we feel first before we think. We actually feel a reaction to something that happens to us. It triggers an emotion, and then we think about what that means for us. So when I say that self-leadership leads to better emotional intelligence, it means because we're really clear about what's important to us and we connect much more to how we're feeling about that as opposed to thinking. And many successful leaders are very good at thinking, but not so good at feeling. And so, yes, it's an intelligence relating to our body, how we feel about the body, and also the emotions we have, whether that's anger, fear, anxiety, sadness, happiness, whatever they are, they're not thinking, they're feelings.
Absolutely true. And especially when you talk about all these emotions, because they are part of everybody's life, especially when we talk about leaders, it is something that they need to contain with themselves because it's a group of people, that they are leading. And certainly, but when it comes to emotions and intelligence, something I really wanted to know, when leaders make a decision, do emotions also somewhere play a role in it?
They do. It's a very good question. So if we were to connect with our emotions first before making a decision rather than just staying thinking, we would know whether that felt naturally right. We talk about gut instinct. We've heard that expression, gut instinct.
Absolutely.
It's that feeling that we have around the emotions. So as long as we're regulating our emotions, one way to think about this for the audience is when I have a feeling, if the feeling is negative in some way, it's probably going to lead to a poor decision. If I'm feeling neutral or positive in the way I'm feeling, it's more likely to lead to a discerning decision. And that's how we can connect with our feelings and our emotions.
All right. Something that we really heard about, I think, another phrase like, it's my gut feeling. I'm feeling this at the moment, so maybe this is the right decision for me right now, at least at that particular moment. So,
Absolutely.
I would say moving on from emotional intelligence, and one more thing I wanted to know, Andrew, is something that right now in this world, we're really talking about emotional intelligence, emotional well-being a lot. So, do you think is this a recent phenomena? Did it not exist before, or it's like people are more vocal about their emotional intelligence today?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if the audience Googles Daniel Goleman, Goleman, he is seen as the grandfather of emotional intelligence. And you're right, it's only recently that there's been measures of emotional intelligence rather than IQ, logical intelligence. And that's because we were recognizing that many leaders in the past were promoted because they were clever. Now many leaders are promoted because they know how to lead themselves and others. So it's probably in the last 20 years that it's become more commonplace to speak about emotional intelligence.
I'm probably you're the best person to ask this question because you are dealing with, people in that particular sphere and you're really, helping them to attain the self-leadership goals. So moving on from emotional, because it's a very emotional connection that I have with this, I would say, segment. Let's move on to decision making. Another very important concept and one of the biggest virtue in a leader's life. Because what they decide is just not going to impact them, but thousands of lives that they are leading, basically. Especially if we talk about political leaders, and right now the arena is pretty hot in the United States. So whatever they decide, the kind of decision they make, it decides the fate of a lot of people associated with them. So when we talk about improved decision making, so how do you relate self leadership with this? If you could just explain it to us in detail.
Yeah, the best way to explain this is with analogy, a metaphor of having a compass as we travel on a journey. And if we are knowing that we're going to a particular destination with the compass, and we can see that the compass is leading in a certain direction, and then we come to an obstacle, and the obstacle is the thing we need to make the decision about. So we need to decide at that point, do we go around, do we go under, do we go over? And it's only by having the compass, recognizing we're going in one direction, that enables us to make the decision very clearly because we know where we're going. So the reason that self-leadership and the practicing of self-leadership enables good decision making is because we always have our compass. We know exactly where we're going. We know why we're going there. We know our role in leading ourselves there. We are doing it with good intentions, and we are doing it in a way which actually enables other people to follow us. So that's why I remember somebody said recently, quoting that the worst thing you can do is not make a decision, because then you're leaving things to chance. So make the decision. You might be wrong, you might be right, but that's what leadership and self-leadership allows you to do. You know the decision you're going to make because it's in linking to where it is that you're going, and that's why it's so important.
And when you just spoke about, whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, what's important is to make a decision and not to leave it blank. And when you just said that, I just thought of the multiple choice question that we generally have, and probably life is also all about. It's all about, one of the option that says none of the above. So it's like not to choosing that, but yes, you need to choose something. But having said that, I would really want to know, and I'm sure the audience is also pretty curious about it. Could you just dive into some example, like real life example that you must have seen or be part of, that how self leadership, I mean, with no names for sure, it has improved the decision making process in, anybody whom you have self coach or, who's been probably a client, not just a client of yours, maybe a friend, but anybody whom you know personally from a personal experience, if you could just share.
Sure. So, working with a chief executive recently, they were under pressure in their business to meet their triple bottom line profitability targets of people, finance, and planet. And for them, they had to make some very difficult decisions aligned to those particular targets that were difficult for the organization, which involved reducing numbers of staff, which meant reducing numbers of products, which meant going into new markets. Now, the reason that the CEO found it easy to make those decisions, even though they were very difficult decisions, is because they were very clear in where they were going, how they were leading themselves there, why they were doing it, and what the end goal was. So when it came to making those decisions, it was easy to see the benefits or not of each of those decisions. Now, had that CEO not had clear self-leadership, it would have meant they wouldn't really know the decisions that they would have to make at that point because there was no clarity in terms of the goal. So because the CEO had very clear self-leadership tendencies and practiced that, even though the decisions were tough, they were easy to make and they weren't prevaricating, they weren't procrastinating. And that benefited the organization for the future because they were then able to grow from that particular position. So that's an example that's been live in the recent months.
Thank you so much for that example. And I really like doing a lot of examples, but that's how probably people really connect. Because it's like somebody who's just associated is a person kind of us going through a similar situation that we could be in it, irrespective whether we are CEO or not. But yes, you never know what life throws on you. So you could be in that kind of situation. And as rightly said, it is not about the present. It's basically about the kind of the future that you're really looking forward to, and you know where you want to reach. what's technically your goal. It could be hard in the present scenario, but it is worth taking that risk. It's worth taking that leap of faith. So I would really like, to ponder upon when we talk about emotional intelligence and we talk about decision making. How would you group them together? Because they really go hand in hand. But and one is not separate from the other. It's like when you have a beautiful emotional intelligence, that's how it leads to good decision making. But if it you need to throw some kind of light on their connection, how would you do it?
It's a really great question. And to simplify it for the audience, if I've got to make a decision right now, and my emotions are in such a place where I don't feel in control of them, i.e., negativity, maybe anger, whatever it might be, it means I'm probably not in the best place to make that decision. So, what I need to do is ground myself in the presence and positivity to recognize again where I'm going, believing in that, trusting myself, having that ability to lead myself effectively, and then move to that position of knowing now I'm feeling positive or neutral, my emotions are being regulated, I can think clearly. I'm in a position to make the decision, but I need to make the decision. I can't let the negativity stop me making the decision. So that's what I would say in terms of managing our emotions. We get triggered by people all the time that actually make our emotions
True, we
negative. We
do.
do. So doing that is the best way to make sure we're making effective decisions.
That is so beautifully, you have curated the, relation between emotional intelligence and decision making. And I'm sure people who are listening to us and watching to us right now will really find this thing. Because when you find this thing, that's how you understand and grasp a lot of. Andrea, I'm not going to hold you a long because I know you're in a bit of a hurry. So I just want to know, when we come back in the next episode, what is that glimpse that you would like to show it to our audience or tell it to our audience? Something that they can really look forward to and tune into Tal Radio again for the next episode. Because self leadership is something, it is a never ending topic. Everybody wants to be a leader, I'm sure. So, what's the next that you have in store for our audience?
It's very interesting. We're going to be talking about the drama triangle. So, in all our relationships, are we acting as a victim? Are we acting as a hero? Or are we acting as a perpetrator? And that's going to be very interesting to discuss about how we get into these relationships without even knowing it. So, that's what we're going to be talking about next time.
My. I think this is something that everybody should tune into because drama is in everybody's life. I heard a beautiful saying once upon a time that we think that humans only have drama in life, but believe it or not, gods have more drama in their life. All right. So, on that wonderful and a lovely note, Andrew, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for diving into the benefits of self leadership. And if you haven't become a self leader today, to all the listeners, I'm saying the thing, please try to inculcate and try to work upon these things because believe it or not, it is going to get a change, bring a change in your life. So, thank you so much, Andrew, and looking forward to the dramas in life.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you so much, and thanks a lot for watching and listening to Tal Radio.